wear wool when you're inside, when there's not a lot of air circulation. That's how you stay warm. So think about Washington's army at Valley Forge, at all the other winter quarters, they were wearing wool. They're freezing to death. Because wool is not as warm, you have to layer up as much as possible. That's how you stay warm, that's how you stay cool. And so the breeze goes right through this wool uniform, hits those damp clothes. It's kind of equivalent of kind of jumping out of the shower and standing right in front of a fan. You're damp, you've got this breeze, and you stay relatively cool. You got to repair this thing as much as possible.
Yeah.
So,
thanks.
You got to mend it here. That's what you're using, what they eventually started to refer to this as. Well, you got to think not many men are thought of as seamstress and sewers as their profession, or that it was seen back then as women, as ladies' work, or as your wife's work to do. So they eventually, by the end of the war, they're successful in surviving the conflict. They're going to be pretty expert seamstress repairing these things. And so they often refer to this repair kit as their housewife. So I always want to make sure you have your housewife and show you can repair this uniform. And guys they're very bored in the Army because it's long durations of boredom with small little snippets of sheer terror. That's generally what the Army life is like. So they're mending these uniforms and trying to entertain themselves as much as possible. They're getting into competitions. Who can make the coolest patch on their uniform? They're doing arcs. They're doing cross cannons, cross swords. They're doing their corps badges that starts being implemented just before the Chancellorsville campaign in the fall of 1863. What that's used initially for is organization. You look at a guy with a circle and it's white, you know the circle is the first corps, you know white is the second division. You can immediately narrow it down to the division where you should be. Why are you over here with all these crescents of the 11th Corps? You need to get over to where all the circles are. But all it also turns into is just like a sports logo. It built up this huge amount of camaraderie of, hey, we're the first corps, we're the circles, rally around this. Or you had acorns, you had all these different symbols that come to be known as that corps badge for organization. So they sometimes sew their corps badge as a patch on there, just kind of bonding the troops together. And so you're building these great relationships with the soldiers you're with. Now initially you thought you're signing up for a 3-month term, a 3-month detail. Maybe somebody might get a bloody nose here or there. War will be over, you have these awesome stories to tell your kids, to tell your grandchildren. I was in the great conflict that either established this new country or preserved the Union. You get into it, have that quick battle. A few months later, July of '61 at Manassas, and the whole game's changed. They started to realize it's going to be a lot longer. This is not exactly what I thought I was signing up for. So really all their thoughts are constantly when they're sitting around their friends who are the companies, the local small organizations are all from the same town. They're all from the same neighborhood of a larger city. You're all from the same county. You all grew up together. You all know the same stories. You exchange those stories about back home, about wishing to be back home. But also definitely in the Civil War, you would have letter writing. And so what first starts off is, one, you're carrying your pen and ink separately because you don't want to, one, just how they're set up right now, but you're not really carrying an actual bottle of ink as you're walking around. Just think about, you have this in your haversack, you bump against something, shatters the glass, it goes everywhere, it goes all over your food. Ink is not the best seasoning. So you don't want to carry around with this, you carry around little tablets of ink. And it's just kind of like going to the science museums and seeing the astronaut ice cream. Think about this is astronaut ink. Dehydrated ink, just crush it up, add some water to it, let it sit, and you have liquid ink. And for writing, what you'd carry with you is your pen, or you'd have a pencil as well. That'd definitely be a little easier, more reliable. You'd also have different nibs, different tips. And so the different design of the nib would, would control or regulate the flow of the ink. So you could say this is maybe standard, this is bold. So clicking up in Word. These are different Word apps here that you can work. So you'd have your nib and you'd simply dip it in your ink. As an officer, as a second lieutenant, what this signifies, I've got a lot of paperwork to do. The government has not changed all that great deal. For a very long time, it's been a lot of paperwork. I'm filing all the reports that my higher ranking officials are passing down to me. First sergeants, the individuals in charge of the platoon, the half company that I'm responsible for, are sending it to me, hey, we're out of so-and-so and this person needs new shoes. The leather's wearing down on these items here. So many are reported sick or in sick duty, so many are present for duty. So I'm writing all these tons of reports. But also, when I have that downtime, I'm writing letters back home. You just dip it in here like this, put a little bit of pressure, and starts to flow out. One of the main reasons why they're definitely writing with cursive is because you don't have to pick the pen up too often. So you have this one nice continual flow of ink. And the letters, many more soldiers were literate, read and write during the Civil War than most people give credit for. You have this abundance of letters exchanged back and forth. Initially, the letters at the beginning of the war, this is so awesome. People are coming from all around the country to unite, to fight in this collective idea that we are supporting. But then as the war goes on, it's like, you know what, I don't like this. Not what I thought I signed up for. Constant thing you'd always find, even up to today in military letters exchanged back and forth, is, you know what, this food is not that good. You don't really like it. So when you're on march, you've got the hardtack, that's the salt water, pinch of salt, and flour, main component there. You've got so many cans of beans. If you're in duty here, then you know you've got a bakery just down there. You're getting fresh bread everywhere. You're getting all those supplies that are coming into DC. They pass through you before they head down to Grant, head out to Sherman in the south. So you're eating really nice when you're here. But then also what they're doing is they're writing these letters back home. More and more as the war goes on, the more and more abundance, the letters are simply filled with questions. Because you ask a question, you got to get an answer, hopefully. So you're just sending back home as many questions as they could possibly think of. So loved ones back home would then write back to them, and they would have this physical, tangible piece of paper that you know a loved one held in their hand. You know they maybe sat down at their dinner table, at the table that you wish you were sitting around with your family, and they're penning these words. And you look at these words, you read them, you envision their voice saying these words to you. You might have a photo of that loved one. You're looking at the photo and imagining them reading these words. That's Skyping for the 1860s. And so you're reading these words, you're holding very dearly these items that came from back home, came from where you wish you were. You go out to the battlefield, you can usually find the path to the battlefield, because they'd be strewn with playing cards, various different things that you don't want your mom to know that you were doing in the Army. All your personal items would generally be sent back home with you in the event that you lost your life. And so you don't want, you want some items maybe to go back, other items maybe they don't need to know about that part, what I was doing in the Army. So you can always find strewn about cards, various different items that you didn't want to be sent back home to your loved ones, but they'd always dearly hold on to these letters. They'd hold them close to them, and this was their tangible connection to back home. And this is one of the main things that keeps them going. They're just hoping, praying eventually they can be back at that place that this letter came from and you eventually were from. Folks, have any questions? If not, it's okay.
Then I see did you attach the knife to the knife and fork?
Correct, yeah. What it is, by the knife opening, you have these little holes here that lock in with this. And so they lock in like so. And when the knife comes down, this little piece here kind of locks it in, and so you can move it back and forth, but it can't come out all the way. So the knife is kind of the key that locks the door for all this. And so if you need to just do something with your knife, you can easily attach that, but then the spoon and the fork are connected as one. Pretty handy, yeah. A lot of people will come up to these things like, oh, I used that in scouting. Like, did they really have it back then? They're like, yep, it just wasn't broken, so they didn't try to fix it. Most of the soldiers would. Some of them would have 3 individual utensils. Whether or not they'd be issued that, they might be, but you also have this sutler, kind of traveling Walmart, general store, that travels with the Army. And so, rare occasions they would actually get paid. When you get up to them, then they would go to the sutlers, maybe buy another pair of shirt, maybe some writing implements, paper, ink, things like that. But you could also buy utensils. They had maybe canned goods that they could get a hold of. The Army couldn't. They'd probably have bakery set up so you could maybe get that fresh bread on the march that the Army didn't have time to set up as quickly. And so definitely perks to kind of go to the PQ kind of, as for today, that the soldiers go to the sutler.
So with the backpack you were talking about and putting all that in, suppose you got a call from Gettysburg, 75 miles away. How fast how many days would it take you to march up there with that all that?
They definitely had it by 63. These guys are very well hardened veterans. They know how fast they can pack these things up or set them up. And so 70 miles, good. You could expect just logically to get there in 3 days. Sometimes you can do a forced march and just march through the night, stop about every 15 minutes or so, or stop about every hour for about a 15-minute break, and then maybe just keep on marching through the night. The more you do that, the more you just go on a walk anywhere in a national park or on the mall, you see how long the group gets strung out. And now think of 15,000, 100,000 men, just how long the lines of march would have been. That's why they kind of broke up the units of this corps. This 10,000 men will go this way, this 10,000 men will go that way. We'll be able to kind of just use the roads more distributed out better, and so we're not just in this long line all backed up in one